Hello, my name is Beatrice and I'm a producer from Naarm, Melbourne, Australia. Today we are going to look at a track that I have made where the main source sample of the track is my voice. So everything in this track besides the drums, the bass and the synths are my vocals, and we're going to look at some production techniques that I've used to process those vocals to create the overall sound of the song. So let's have a little listen. So as you can hear, there is a lot of vocal processing going on in that song. There are some subtle layers and some not so subtle layers of my vocal sounds. I've always been really curious how artists create their own sound. There is something like 40,000 tracks a day which are uploaded to Spotify. And I'm always really interested when a song comes on how you know that that is a specific artist's sound. So for my sound, I like to use my voice, and I am not a professional singer. I just use it and sample it, and then I process it in different ways. I even often use the same vocal samples over and over again. And I find when you have a limited amount of source samples in your composition, it can really help to create a very cohesive sonic universe. So one of the main processes that I use is I will improvise a vocal melody, and then I will take that vocal sample and I'll drop it into Simpler, and then I slice up that sample using the slice mode. What we do is we grab a new audio channel by pressing Command T, and then I'm going to record enable it, and I'm just going to do a little vocal improvisation that we're going to use. So you know, it is what it is. It's not amazing, but Command Shift T for a MIDI channel. Then I'm going to grab a Simpler, drop it on there, pick up that little nugget of improvised magic and slice it up. So I'm going to choose, you can choose how you want the audio to be sliced. It defaults with transients. I'm going to go beats, and the division, it defaults with quarter notes, which I'm happy with, playback in mono. And there's a few things that I do to kind of help this process. In the right-hand corner, I have this keyboard symbol enabled, which means I can use my computer keyboard. So dry, it sounds like this. Which, you know, that's fine, but we can do some things to it. So I'm going to grab an arpeggiator to help create a bit of movement. Open up the gate. I'm going to put a little bit of reverb. I have some reverb on this A return. I'm also going to put some auto-tune on it for you and for me. So B minor is the key. And let's have a little listen again. So I'm just moving my fingers around the keyboard, and it's not chromatic, so it's not like a piano where I have to know what I'm playing. I'm basically I'm just trying different combinations of sounds till I find something that I really like. And as you heard, I am not a super confident singer, so I'm just trying something and then I use my production magic to make it sound better. Some other tricks I do, I use fade in to help it not be so clicky. Let's try up here. Yeah. And then I often transpose it down an octave, shift down to see what it sounds like. Cool. And then up an octave. So I press shift and the up or shift and down jumps 12 semitones, which is an octave. And you can change the rate of the up. And so now I'm just going to show you one that I prepared earlier. It's another vocal sample, but same thing, slice, beat, and it sounds like this. I'll turn the effects off so you can hear it dry. So I'll turn the effects back on. I've got a reverb and a delay and a decapitator, which is a Sound Toys plugin that's kind of like a saturator delay. And then on the channel, I have another delay and a gate. The thing that I want to try to do more is to create more staccato, like rhythmic sounds for dance music. So what I have done is I've duplicated it and I've frozen it. So right click and press freeze, and then I'm going to press flatten, and I'm going to turn that MIDI channel into an audio channel, and I'm going to print what is on the MIDI channel, the effects on the MIDI channel, onto this audio. So if I go then flatten, I right clicked again, and so now these two should sound the same. And again, very legato. So the next thing that I'm going to do is automate the volume. I'm going to give it some movement. I'm going to create some kind of rhythm, and you could do this with side chaining. I like doing it with volume because I like being able to have heaps of control over the feel and what's kind of coming through, because I think when you're creating melodies, like you want different parts of the melodies to pop out. So it's not just like I'm side chaining to the kick. I want it to have more of a responsive and alive feel rather than something that's just a bit repetitive. So what I do is I go here, I click on the volume, and so now I start to automate the volume. You're basically just creating different patterns that can let it sound through. So when I do find a pattern that I like, I grab it like this and I duplicate it out. Command D. Even though this looks like you are giving yourself RSI, you can just repeat the pattern. I'll show you the one I did for this track. And in the track. Cool. And then underneath I have a MIDI channel, and again it's the same simpler, same original recording, and I've just automated different parts of the melody to kind of like emphasize the rhythm. So I'm just going to solo that whole yellow group. Yeah, what is happening is I am just recorded some vocals, pop them in simpler, slice them up, and you can do that with any audio. So now we're going to look at Granulator, which is a Max for Live synthesizer, and it works by creating short crossfading sections of a sample, and then you can modulate the pitch, position and volume of each grain. So I don't actually really understand it, but it sounds sick. So this is Granulator. This is what the interface looks like. I've just dropped one of my vocal samples in there. And so if I solo this channel to show you, and I'll just put a loop around it, Command L, and then basically just muck around with the grain, the file position and the spray. So nice. So what I do when I'm playing with it is I'll grab a new audio channel, so Command T, and then I'll have the input of this channel being from Granulator. So I'm basically just going to record while I'm mucking around with it and resample it. So put it onto in, and then I'm just going to record here, muck around. So yeah, then I just basically end up with a whole bunch of wild sounds, really. This is one that I prepared earlier. Super choppy. On that channel, I've got a filter that I'm just bringing in the sound slowly. I've got replica, which is like a big delay. And then I have a utility, which is automating the volume. And so it sounds like this. And then in the track. Later on, sounds like this. Super subtle, rhythmic, atmospheric vibe going on. The other thing that I like to do is grabbing another bit, reversing it and using it as a riser in the mix. And something I think is really cool about that is using the same source samples and then manipulating them over and over in lots of different ways to create a cohesive sonic universe. Another example is up the top here. I have these samples here, sound like this. And this one is going through to this A return, which has a big chamber reverb on it. Another resampling thing that I like to do is Command T for a new audio channel. I'm going to have the input of this channel coming from return A, which is here. And so then in record, and if I play this, cool. So now this should have that reverb printed as audio now. Let's have a listen. Yeah, so now something that's kind of cool is I often grab them and press Command D to duplicate it out. Try to create more of a rhythmic thing. Sometimes, again, I click on it, press R, reverse it, crank it up on the gain, and have it as kind of like a riser. So something like that. So that's what I got going on here. So I've just obviously affected that. I've got an EQ, a filter, another EQ. I've got a decapitator, which is the one from before, and a micro shift, which is a chorus. And it sounds like this. And in the mix. So yeah, just a choppy vocal atmospheric sound. And then in this section, I have them as risers. So. And then later on, I've just got them as little rhythmic. So as you can hear, I've boosted it up over 8K, so there's lots of kind of nice airy sounds coming through, which is nice when I'll talk about it a bit later, but being able to utilize different parts of the voice to add a different timbre. So in my live show, I also do heaps of vocal processing, and one of the main effects that I use to do that is called Turnado. Over here I have Turnado, which is a Sugar Bytes plugin, and this is my live vocal rack down here. So this is all the effects that I have on the channel. So I have some basic shaping, a CLA, an EQ, I have Turnado, I have a reverb freeze, which is really fun, and then a gate after that, limiter, filter, and then a utility to boost in any volume if I need it. And so this is Turnado, put on the wet and dry. You can change any of these knobs to any of these effects. So it's really cool, it's diverse, but the one that I use a lot is the freeze verb. You sing a note and it kind of captures the reverb on that note and holds it. So I'm going to give you a little example. So I will turn the channel on. So that's what I've captured basically, just with the Turnado. So that's what I do live. I do lots of fun effects stuff, but when I'm using it for a session, I do the same thing where I sample it. So I'll do Command T for a new audio channel, and then I'll have the input of this channel coming from this live channel. I have it on in, have record enabled, so we'll do that again. Woo! So yeah, you can hear, it's pretty fun. I will show you what we ended up with. It's always a bit of a gamble. Yeah, and so there's always heaps of different kind of sounds and stuff you can get. You can make more patty sounds with the reverb freeze. For this song, I wanted to have more chopped vocals, so that's what I ended up with down here. Sounds like this. Yeah, so on that I have a compressor with a ghost kick. That's where you're side chaining, but you can't hear the source sample. There's a pattern that's playing that is side chaining that rhythmic vocal sound. Then I have a filter, I have an EQ, lots of air in this one. And then a compressor, so on this channel. So I also have a whole bunch of vocal samples that I've pre-made. I made them with a friend of mine, Jake, where I improvised a whole bunch of singing and then we processed them through his guitar pedals and chopped them up. And now I have a whole library of those affected samples that I use through my tracks all the time. There's a whole bunch of them. And what I've done again is I've created a MIDI channel and I've put it in simpler, and I've just got it on one shot mode this time, and so it sounds like this. Cool rhythmic effect. I've got a micro shift, which is like a chorus, and again the replica, which is like a cool delay, and I've resampled it into here. put a filter on it, and again I've got a compressor that has the ghost kick, so it's creating a pulsing sound. And then yeah, I've reused it throughout the whole track, and I've got these two channels where I've resampled it twice, but I've affected them a little bit differently. So that's this one, and then this one, which is just way more of the top end. So I've taken out everything underneath 1K, and I've got a chorus on it. I've got a FabFilter Satin, which is like a multi-band distortion effect. So you can, yeah, just choose the frequency bands which you want to distort and alter the timbre. And then I've got a Pan Man. So these two, or this whole group. Yeah, I love it. It's just like different vocal rhythmic stuff that's happening. But yeah, these samples are really cool. So they're pre-made. I haven't made them in this session, but I actually use them all the time. So basically all of these purple channels are, so B sample 16, so that's this one. So I've got that happening throughout the track. And number 11. And it was the original one that I used to sample the reverb from. So yeah, I've got all of these kind of pre-made vocal samples that I can use as my own sample bank throughout tracks, which I really love. And I use them all the time, actually. For this main melody, I've used some different effects and techniques to help create movement. I've sung the melody originally and then put it into Melodyne and kind of reshaped it a little bit, and also to give it some tuning and also a bit of an interesting timbre. So you can hear the melody, and then you can also hear all the pulsing and movement. So again, I've got that volume automation, which is the same thing as what I did before. But on this one, I also have autopan, automating the amount of the autopan. So not only is it pulsing, it's also kind of panning into each of my ears. So it's giving it a whole bunch of movement, which is cool. And then the other thing, I've got a second melody down here. So I'll have a listen. So I've got a second melody happening down here. So if we listen to those two together. So sometimes instead of just randomly chopping stuff up, when there's a specific sound that I know that I need, like a percussive sound, then I'll just record it straight in. So I'm going to show you what this sound was originally. So I'll just turn all the effects off. It sounded like this. And then I've chopped it up. So go back, chop. And then these are all the effects I have on it. And it sounds like this. And in the mix. Yeah, super subtle. I have an auto tune. I love you, auto tune. I have an EQ. I have I have another EQ. I have a chorus. I have a crystallizer, which is like a really crazy cool delay. I have another EQ. I have a sidechain compressor. I have Little Alter Boy, which is a pitch shifter. And I have a supercharger, which is like a distortion kind of sound. So it sounds like this. Again, dry. And wet. And the next thing underneath that is the resonator. And so on this channel, I have, same as before, that same simpler with that same audio sample from the start. It's got an arpeggiator pitched up, 12 semitones. I've got an auto tune. I've got a sidechain compressor. I've got a Pultec EQ. I've got an EQ8, an Ableton EQ8, which I love. And I'm automating the gain of a certain frequency band up around 6K. I have an automated reverb that's the dry and wet. And then I have this thing called Resonator. You can choose specific resonances in your sound and kind of boost them in or out. So you can see here there's different harmonics and frequencies that I've chosen, and I'm automating them to come in and out. So I'm just going to give you a little example of that here. So you can see all of these different harmonics are boosting in and out. I'm automating this specific frequency band here and automating a reverb. So then I featured it in the outro. I really love manipulating different frequency bands of the voice. So pushing in different areas of it throughout the mix, like different harmonics and the breath. Another example of that is this group down the bottom called the Vocal Atmos group. It's super soft vocal harmonies, but the way that I've processed them is by really trying to amplify the airy top end of the voice. So this is what they sound like. Yeah, and it's just two harmonies sung. I've got an auto tune. I have an EQ. I've got the chorus again. I've got a glue compressor, which has a side chain, and then again a Pultec EQ. And same on this one. They're just kind of different notes. And this one is just basically a breath that I've chopped up. So again, there's an EQ, and I'm boosting kind of 10K and up, which is all the air in the sound. Got a chorus, got a compressor and a filter. It's also going through a bunch of different delays and reverb returns. So it sounds like this. And in the mix. So that's just slower pulses, but it's using a different timbre of the vocals, leaning into that more soft top end. Overall, this is what the whole composition looks like. We can see all of these different production things that I went through. Granulator and those that kind of like rhythmic atmospheric parts were only really used in the intro. And then after 8 bars, when it dropped into the first verse, I'm doing inverted commas, I can see this is where that main vocal melody dropped in. And then there is a breakdown here where simpler and the vocal slicing happens. And then it goes back into a second drop, which is kind of a repeating of this. But this time when it comes in, there's new elements. So it's like repeating that section, but it's more evolved. And then here we have the outro. And again, it's using the simpler kind of elements, but with some new parts. Yeah, I kind of see it like a bit of a story with repeating phrases, and every time you tell the phrase again, you're telling it in a slightly different way. So it feels like you're getting to know the story deeper and deeper and deeper. And I like to do that by repeating sections, but when you repeat them, you change them slightly or add in some new layers. And another way I like to do that, which is something I'm very interested in, is how to automate different parameters on plugins or using returns so that repeated sounds feel like they're evolving. So in this breath, it's just a chopped up repeated breath. I'm automating the drive and I'm automating the output trim so that I hear that by itself. So like here. And it's very subtle, but you can feel that when all of the sounds are changing and evolving and moving, it feels like they're alive. And I'm more wanting the music to sound like it's evolving. And so I'm automating a lot of parameters on plugins. We can see here the track volume, using a lot of returns as well. So these are all going down to different delays, different reverbs that are EQ'd differently. All the kind of different sounds that can make sounds feel like they're in different spaces. And then how do I make an arrangement feel like it's telling a deeper and deeper and deeper story? You know, how does it feel like a journey, basically? So that is a bunch of techniques that you can use no matter where you get your sound sources from. You could be a vocalist, you could be an instrumentalist, you could get field recordings, you could make percussion with your kitchen drawer. Whatever audio source samples you have, you can hopefully use these to create your own sonic universe.